Abraham Lincoln said, "The better part of one's life consists of his friendships." Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "The only way to have a friend is to be one." According to Los Angeles psychiatrist Dr. Leonard Zunin, despite the fact that the average American meets as many people in 1 year as their ancestors met in a lifetime 100 years ago, loneliness is the main problem facing Americans today. Everyone needs friendships. The pollster George Barna reported that one of the leading trends in our society post-2000 is a movement away from meaningful friendships. We are becoming a more and more closed society. People are often spending their days moving through a crowd of strangers and coming home to an isolated or artificial existence. Yale psychologist Daniel Levinson observed, "Close friendship with a man or woman is rarely experienced by American men. As a result, there is a craving for community with others in our society." It's strange that we have a thing called Facebook, and you can just have all kinds of friends on Facebook. But some of those friendships really aren't very meaningful, are they? You get some friend requests from some strange people at times as well. But here we are. We have all kinds of means of communication. And still, sometimes, we don't have friends. Now, the book of Proverbs has something to say about friends. Of course, Proverbs, just a collection of sayings, and they're not organized in the book, but we can pick out the ones that deal with friends and give some attention to these particular texts. I listed as the text for the sermon Proverbs 27, 9, and 10. "Perfume and incense bring joy to the heart, and the pleasantness of one's friend springs from his earnest counsel. Do not forsake your friend and the friend of your father, and do not go to your brother's house when disaster strikes you. Better a neighbor nearby than a brother far away." Dave L. Bland, in his commentary addressing this, says that verse 9 is an analogy. The enjoyment received from the sweet aroma of perfume is compared to the pleasant counsel received from a friend. He notes that the Hebrew word can be translated either friend or neighbor. As he comments on verse 10, he says, "The one who practices the ideals of neighborliness will also demonstrate dependability in times of crisis. The good neighbor is just as supportive as the family member, that is, the brother." Debbie and I have certainly been in situations over our years of marriage and being far away from family where friends, and especially our friends that were our brothers and sisters in Christ, were very valuable. We moved to Memphis the first year at Thanksgiving. It seemed a bit far to go home. We found some other folks that weren't going home for Thanksgiving, and we got together and had a Thanksgiving meal. We did make it to a family gathering or two while we lived in Memphis, but then we moved to Virginia. Now, you move from Oklahoma to Memphis, and that's a pretty good trip. And you move from Memphis to Virginia, and that's a pretty good trip. But then, to get home, you've got to go from Virginia to Oklahoma or Texas, and that is a long trip. The folks in Virginia used to talk about us living out west. They said, "We don't live out west." Well, after we made the trip a few times, "Yeah, we live out west compared to Virginia." Well, what did we do in Virginia when it came to Thanksgiving time? Couldn't go home. We found other folks that weren't going to be with family, and we got together and had a Thanksgiving meal together. In fact, when we moved back closer to home, we kind of missed those gatherings with our brothers and sisters and other friends there in Virginia. Friendship. Having a friend can sometimes be even closer than some of our family relationships, especially if our family is at a distance. As we observe the different proverbs about friendship, we find that some friendships are stronger than even family ties, as I've just mentioned. Oscar Wilde wrote, "A true friend always stabs you in the front." Get that? A true friend always stabs you in the front. There are those who will stab you in the back. They're not your friend. But if you have a true friend, he's going to confront you when you're wrong. He's going to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. Proverbs 17:17, "A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity." You know, your brothers and sisters you're just stuck with. You're born into the same family with them. And sometimes you get along, sometimes you don't. Yesterday, as I watched Ron Beaver's funeral online, his brother got up and had a few things to say. Now, Ron was getting ready to turn 89. He had hoped to live to be 89, but didn't quite make it. His brother who got up and spoke was his older brother, 2 years and 7 months older than him. And he had a lot of things to say about his brother, good things, and they had a very close relationship, apparently. It's good when that can happen between brothers, between sisters and brothers, and so forth. Sometimes it doesn't. But if you have a good friend, they will love you at all times. Sometimes it's not the same with family relationships. Proverbs 22:11, "He who loves a pure heart and whose speech is gracious will have the king for his friend." That's kind of an interesting combination there. The one who has a pure heart, when he speaks, he does so in a gracious manner, in a good manner. It says he'll even have the king for a friend. Well, that's a pretty handy person to have for a friend. Friends can lead one astray. Friends can be very good for us, but some friends can lead us astray. Proverbs 12:26, "A righteous man is cautious in friendship, but the way of the wicked leads them astray." That's saying we need to choose our friends carefully. There are those friends who can help us be better. There are those friends who could lead us astray and cause us to be worse. So it's important to choose our friends wisely. As we all know, friendships can be damaged. 16:28, "A perverse man stirs up dissension, and a gossip separates close friends." Gossip apparently is one of the world's oldest activities. I guess after Adam and Eve had children and things began to expand just a little bit, it wasn't too long before they started gossiping about each other. That has continued down through the centuries. Telling things on each other, even telling something on your friend, will separate those close friends. There are those who seem to want to stir up trouble wherever they go. Proverbs 17:29, "He who covers over an offense promotes love, but whoever repeats the matter separates close friends." Again, if your friend has committed an offense, you don't spread it. Language here is you cover over. Well, we don't excuse a friend's sin. The New Testament especially instructs us to rebuke a brother or sister who sins, to call them to repentance. That is true friendship. On the other hand, if a friend, someone we know, does commit an offense, we don't repeat the matter. I always find it interesting, and I guess I'm guilty of this as well. It is so easy to talk about the faults of others with other people, but not with the person who's at fault. And what good does that do, the person who is at fault? None. If we know that a friend is doing something wrong, we need to talk to them. And they're the only ones we need to talk to, at least at first. Henry Ward Beecher once said that one should keep a fair-sized cemetery in his backyard in which to bury the faults of his friends. Now, if a friend has a fault that is serious, especially if it's a sin, we need to rebuke them. We need to help them make correction. But then there are those things that really aren't a big deal in the long scheme of things. And so the analogy here of just burying them in the backyard is pretty good. Some things we just need to forget. Proverbs 18:24, a man of many companions may come to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. Sometimes people have a lot of friends. But you ask them, do you have a close friend? Well, no. But if you have a friend who is genuine, they may even be better than a brother or a sister. Proverbs 22:24, do not make friends with a hot-tempered man. Do not associate with one easily angered. Some people just make better friends than others do. Be cautious in trying to be friends with someone who is easily angered. Now, some friendships are based on money. That doesn't surprise you, does it? Proverbs 14:20, the poor are shunned even by their neighbors, but the rich have many friends. That's kind of a loose definition of friends, though, isn't it? If you can buy friends, what happens when you run out of money? Well, we know what can happen. We even have a parable that deals with that in part. The younger son asked for his share of the inheritance. When he got it, he left home. He went off and started spending it in bad ways. And he had friends until his money ran out. And apparently, not a one of those friends was willing to help him. He ended up feeding the pigs. Not a very good friend. Again, 19:4, wealth brings many friends, but a poor man's friend deserts him. How sad that is, that there would be those who would say they're our friends, but it's just for what we can give them. A farmer was detained for questioning about an election scandal. The attorney asked, did you sell your vote? No, sir, not me, the farmer protested. I voted for that there fella because I liked him. Come now, threatened the attorney. I have evidence that he gave you $50 for a vote. Well now, the farmer said, it's plain common sense that when a fella gives you $50, you like him. Friendship for money, not a very good thing. One more proverb there, Proverbs 19:6-7. Many curry favor with a ruler, and everyone is the friend of a man who gives gifts. A poor man is shunned by all his relatives. How much more do his friends avoid him? Though he pursues them with pleading, they are nowhere to be found. You can have money. Money can buy friends, but not lasting friends. The other day, we had somebody who won over $1 billion, well over $1 billion before taxes. I don't know whether that person has come forth yet or not. When they do, they are going to have all kinds of friends and even some new relatives. That's the way it works when you get a lot of money. But they're not going to be true friends. Helen Keller said, walking in the dark with a friend is better than walking alone in the light. There's an old story about a little girl who had been passed from one orphanage to another. She was very shy and felt rather unattractive. The other children would not play with her, and her teachers considered her to be a problem child. In this particular orphanage, there was a rule that all outside correspondence had to be screened by the staff. One day, the director of the orphanage happened to see the little girl carrying a letter toward the wall that surrounded the institution. She climbed a tree near the wall and hung the envelope on a branch that could be reached from the other side. The director went outside the gates, took down the letter, and opened it. It simply read, from Susan, to whomever finds this letter, I love you. He was looking for a friend. Now, I don't know whether Mac Davis had heard this story or not, but he wrote a beautiful song with the title, "Whoever Finds This, I Love You." And it tells about an orphan girl who wrote a note that said, "Whoever finds this, I love you. Whoever finds this, I need you. I ain't even got no one to talk to. So whoever finds this, I love you." In the song, an old man finds the note. He finds the girl. He goes down to the orphanage. He sees the little girl looking out the window with her nose pressed up against the glass. Decides that's the one who wrote the note. And they start a friendship. He will give her little gifts. She will draw him pictures. This goes on for a few months. And then one day, the old man doesn't show up. Probably he got sick, maybe even died. The next part of the song says that the little girl went to her room and with crayon and a piece of paper wrote, "Whoever finds this, I love you. Whoever finds this, I need you. I ain't even got no one to talk to, so whoever finds this, I love you." Proverbs has several things to say about friends. Gives some good instruction on how our friendship should function. And it is wonderful to have good friends. You know, Jesus made a statement about friends, John chapter 15, verse 13. "Greater love has no one than this, that he lay down his life for his friends." And Jesus was the supreme example of a true friend.